It happened just after midnight on a rainy Thursday in a small Ohio neighborhood. Neighbors had grown used to the yelling from the apartment on the corner, but that night, something was different. There was a crash, followed by screaming, then a moment of silence that felt like it lasted forever. That's when Mrs. Green, the woman in apartment 2B, finally called 911. "There's a child in there," she whispered over the phone, her voice shaking. "And I think he's going to kill someone." When officers arrived minutes later, the hallway smelled like alcohol and fear. The front door was unlocked, but battered. Inside, a man was pacing the living room, his knuckles bloodied. A young woman, bruised, dazed, and barely conscious, lay curled on the floor, arms shielding her head. But the officer's eyes swept the room for something else. "Where's the child?" Officer Jennings asked. Gun drawn. No answer. A soft cry led them to the bedroom. That's where they found her. 3-year-old Lily, huddled under a bed, gripping a teddy bear that had lost one of its eyes. Her cheeks were tear-streaked, her clothes wrinkled and stained. When Officer Thompson crouched down and reached toward her, Lily didn't scream. She didn't speak. She didn't even blink. She just stared. Lily was immediately taken to the hospital for evaluation. Physically, she had no visible injuries, but emotionally, she was fractured. When asked questions by the doctor, she wouldn't answer. When nurses tried to give her a toy or a juice box, she looked away. She didn't speak a single word. The hospital contacted Child Protective Services. That same morning, Lily was placed into emergency foster care with Marlene Wilcox, a retired elementary school teacher who had spent the last 10 years taking in children during moments just like this. "She's not talking?" Marlene asked. Looking over the papers. "Not a word," the social worker replied. "Not since she was found." The first few days were the hardest. Marlene had raised dozens of children, but Lily was different. She didn't cry, didn't laugh, didn't speak. She barely made eye contact. At night, she'd curl up in bed and stare at the ceiling for hours. Marlene sat in the rocking chair nearby, humming lullabies, hoping some part of Lily could feel the safety around her now. By the end of the week, Marlene had tried everything: music, storybooks, even baking cookies together. But Lily remained, locked in silence. Her therapist, Dr. Evans, noted signs of selective mutism and trauma-induced PTSD. "She's not being stubborn," she explained to Marlene. "She's scared. Her brain is protecting her by shutting everything down." One afternoon during a therapy session, Dr. Evans mentioned a program being piloted through the local police department. It involved a specially trained courtroom dog, a Labrador named Justice, who worked with children who had to testify in traumatic cases. He's gentle, trained to be calm and quiet. Sometimes children find it easier to open up around dogs than people, Dr. Evans said. "We can bring him for a visit." "No pressure," Marlene hesitated. "You think a dog can get through to her?" Dr. Evans smiled softly. "Sometimes a dog's silence speaks louder than our words ever could." The next morning, Marlene told Lily that a visitor was coming. Lily didn't react. She sat at the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. An hour later, a car pulled up. Out stepped Officer Bailey, holding the leash of a calm, black Labrador with soft brown eyes and a shiny badge on his collar. His name was Justice. Lily watched from the hallway as Justice entered the living room. He didn't bark. He didn't jump. He simply sat down in the center of the rug and waited. And Lily slowly, cautiously stepped into the room. Her little fingers clutched the fraying edge of her teddy bear. Justice didn't move. Then, for the first time in nearly 2 weeks, Lily took a step forward, then another, and without a single word, she reached out and touched his fur. Justice didn't flinch when Lily touched him. He remained perfectly still, like he somehow understood that any sudden movement might shatter something fragile. His ears twitched slightly. His tail gave a quiet thump against the rug. But otherwise, he was stone solid, patient, safe. Lily stood beside him, her fingers curled into the thick fur on his back. Her grip wasn't tight, it was careful, like she was afraid he might disappear. Marlene, watching from the kitchen doorway, pressed her hand to her chest. She had never seen the little girl move with such focus before. It was as if Lily had found something familiar in this silent, furry stranger. A comfort she hadn't let herself feel in weeks. Officer Bailey sat down gently on the floor across from them, giving the space room to breathe. "That's Justice," he said in a soft, calm voice. "He's a police dog, but his job's a little different." Lily didn't look up. "He doesn't chase bad guys," Bailey continued. "He helps kids who've been through hard things. He sits beside them when they have to talk in court. He helps them feel brave." Still no words from Lily, but she sank to the floor beside Justice, never letting go of his fur. He lay down with her, stretching out slowly, his head resting gently on his paws. She looked into his eyes. He blinked once, slow and calm. She blinked back. That became the routine. Every day after that, Justice returned. Sometimes with Officer Bailey, sometimes with a volunteer handler, but always with that same unshakable calm. And every day, Lily waited by the front window. She never said anything, not to Marlene, not to the handlers, but her body began to soften. She stopped flinching. When the doorbell rang, she stopped recoiling from hugs. And once, when Marlene accidentally dropped a plate in the kitchen, Lily didn't freeze up or hide. She simply turned toward the sound and looked back at Justice. He was already watching her. Then came the breakthrough. It was 2 weeks after Justice first arrived. The living room was quiet. Justice was curled up on the rug, eyes half closed. Lily sat beside him with her teddy bear, brushing the matted fur with slow strokes. Marlene was folding laundry nearby, careful not to disrupt the peace. And then a sound, a whisper. "Good boy." Marlene froze. Her hands stopped mid-fold. She turned her head slowly. Lily was resting her head against Justice's back, her lips near his ear. "Good boy," she said again, a little louder. Justice didn't react, but Marlene's eyes filled with tears. It was the first time Lily had spoken since the night police found her. 2 words barely above a whisper, but they broke the silence like sunlight through storm clouds. Dr. Evans wept when she heard. "This is the door," she said. "Now we help her walk through it." The timing couldn't have been more crucial. The prosecutor's office contacted Marlene later that week. Lily's presence would be required in court, not to testify formally, but to be part of the process. Her identity was protected, and she would not be cross-examined. But the judge believed it was important for the court to hear her story. In her own words, when she was ready, Marlene was horrified. She just started speaking again. She argued, "You're going to put her back in that trauma?" The prosecutor was gentle. "Justice will be with her the entire time. She won't be alone, and we believe she's ready." Dr. Evans agreed. This could be part of her healing, if it's on her terms. They started preparing Lily, not with scripts or rehearsals, but with play therapy and gentle encouragement. Each time she met Justice, she spoke a little more. She whispered to him secrets no one else could hear. When asked who her best friend was, she simply said, "Justice." He became her voice before she found her own. And when the court date finally arrived, Lily stood by the front door in a blue dress and tiny shoes, holding her teddy bear in one hand and Justice's leash in the other. The courthouse loomed tall and gray, its columns casting long shadows across the steps. Most children would be terrified to enter a building like that, so heavy with tension and expectation. But Lily stood quietly beside Marlene, clutching her teddy and holding Justice's leash. She looked small under the courthouse archway, yet somehow stronger than anyone had expected. Inside, whispers floated through the halls. Prosecutors, clerks, and attorneys all paused to look at the child standing beside the police dog. A few smiled softly. Others simply stepped aside, sensing the importance of her presence. Courtroom 204 was already filled when Lily entered through the side door. Her mother was not present, still recovering emotionally in a safe shelter under a protection program. But the man who had changed both their lives sat at the defense table, stiff and silent, his lawyer whispering in his ear. The judge was a tall woman with soft eyes, known for her no-nonsense demeanor. But when she saw Lily walk in, her face gentled. "We are privileged today," she announced to the room, "to have a very special witness joining us, one who is brave beyond her years." Lily looked up at Marlene, who gave her the softest of nods. Justice led her forward, his movements slow and sure. As they approached the witness stand, Lily hesitated for just a moment. But Justice nudged her hand with his nose, and she took the final step. The judge allowed Justice to sit with her on the stand. This was highly unusual, but not without precedent. Justice curled up beside her, touching her leg just enough to remind her, "I'm here." The assistant district attorney, a woman named Miss Carter, approached carefully. She crouched slightly, so she wasn't towering over the little girl. "Hi, Lily," she said kindly. "You don't have to say anything you don't want to. Just tell me if something is too hard, okay?" Lily glanced at Justice, then back to Miss Carter. She gave a small nod. Miss Carter smiled. "Do you remember what happened that night in the apartment?" Lily's hands tightened around the leash. Silence. The courtroom waited, breathless. Then softly, Lily whispered, "He yelled at Mommy." Justice stirred, pressing his head into her knee. Miss Carter nodded, gently. "What did you do when that happened?" "I hid," Lily said, barely audible. "Under the bed." Tears filled Marlene's eyes. The judge's gavel lay untouched. The defense attorney stood, prepared to object, but the judge raised her hand to stop him. "Let her speak," Miss Carter continued. "Was there anyone else with you?" "My teddy," Lily said. Her voice was louder now. "And I covered my ears." The room stayed silent. Everyone had stopped taking notes. Even the court reporter paused, her hands trembling slightly over the keys. "And how did you feel?" Miss Carter asked. Lily didn't answer immediately. Her fingers found Justice's ear, rubbing gently. "Scared?" she said finally. "I thought he'd find me." Justice lifted his head and rested it in her lap. That moment, so quiet, so raw, brought tears to more than one pair of eyes in the room. Then, without being prompted, Lily added, "Justice helped me talk." Miss Carter placed a hand over her heart. The judge looked down and wiped at the corner of her eye. "You're very brave, Lily," Miss Carter said. "We're proud of you." When Lily stepped down from the stand, the entire courtroom remained quiet. There was no applause, no outburst, only the silent acknowledgement that something extraordinary had just happened. As she passed by the jury box, one of the jurors mouthed, "Thank you." Justice walked beside her, tail wagging gently, his mission far from over. And in that courtroom, filled with adults hardened by years of legal battles, it wasn't the law that made the biggest impact. It was the soft voice of a child and the steady loyalty of a dog. The door closed softly behind Lily and Justice as they exited the courtroom, leaving behind a silence that lingered like fog. For several long seconds, no one moved. The judge sat still, her gavel untouched. The prosecutor stood frozen, her eyes glistening. Even the defense attorney, so confident just an hour earlier, seemed shaken. Then, quietly, the judge cleared her throat. "Let the record reflect," she said, her voice low but firm, "that the witness's presence and testimony or delivered with extraordinary courage. She looked toward the jury box. This court recognizes the truth of her words. Lily and Justice waited in a private room with Marlene and Dr. Evans. Lily held a juice box in one hand, her teddy bear in the other, and rested her head against Justice's side. She looked tired, but not broken. In fact, she looked lighter, like something she had been carrying for far too long had finally been let go. "She did it," Marlene whispered, brushing Lily's hair behind her ear. "You were so brave, sweetheart." Justice licked Lily's cheek. She giggled a quiet sound, but full of warmth. Meanwhile, back in the courtroom, Miss Carter was laying out the rest of her case. Though Lily's testimony had been brief, it had struck the heart of everyone in the room. The photographs, the medical reports, the witness statements, they all now echoed with Lily's tiny, powerful voice. And Justice's presence had softened the hardest parts of the process. His steady loyalty had made the unthinkable bearable. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Miss Carter said during her closing arguments, "sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest weight. What you saw today wasn't just evidence, it was truth. Simple, honest, and spoken with the innocence that this world too often tries to silence." In the jury box, several jurors nodded. Others dabbed their eyes. One man, stoic all trial, long swallowed hard and looked down at his lap. Outside the courthouse, word had started to spread. A reporter from the local station, who'd been covering the trial since day one, filed a piece titled, "The Dog Who Helped a Little Girl Speak." It went viral within hours. By nightfall, photos of Lily and Justice, taken discreetly by court personnel with Marlene's permission, were circulating online, accompanied by messages of support from around the country. "Courage doesn't always roar," one user posted. "Sometimes it whispers and pets a dog." That evening, after dinner, Lily asked Marlene a question she hadn't dared before. "Is Mommy safe now?" Marlene knelt beside her. "Yes, sweetie. She's safe, because of you." Lily didn't speak right away. Then she whispered, "Can she have a dog too?" Marlene smiled. "Maybe one day, but right now, she's proud of you. More than you know." Later that night, Lily slept soundly for the first time since she'd come into Marlene's home. Justice lay curled at the foot of her bed. He had been allowed to stay the night, an exception granted by the department, just this once. When Marlene peeked in before bed, she saw Lily dreaming peacefully, one hand resting on Justice's back. Back in the courthouse the next morning, the jury returned with their verdict, "Guilty, on all counts." There was no celebration in the courtroom, only quiet relief. The judge called it a necessary victory. The prosecutor called it a testament to truth. And the bailiff, who had seen hundreds of cases over the years, whispered to Miss Carter, "That little girl did more with 6 words than any lawyer could with 6 hours." After the verdict, the judge requested a private audience with Lily. Inside her chambers, she gave Lily a certificate hand-lettered and framed, "To Lily, for extraordinary bravery, honesty, and heart." She also gave Justice a new collar tag, one word engraved in gold, "Hero." The courtroom lights had dimmed, but the story was just beginning. Outside the courthouse, Lily's name was never released to the media. Only the nickname Little Witness appeared in articles. But Justice? His name was everywhere. News stations ran the story across the country. Courtroom Canine helps child confront her abuser. Photos of him sitting proudly beside a small girl in a blue dress touched millions. Celebrities shared it. Trauma counselors praised it. Lawmakers discussed it. But while the world buzzed with admiration, Lily was back home with Marlene, quietly coloring butterflies onto notebook paper. Justice lay nearby, gnawing gently on a toy bone, his reward for a job well done. Marlene home. Lily's bravery certificate on her bedroom wall. "You earned this," she said, every word. Lily tilted her head. Can Justice have one too? He already has. Marlene smiled. It's around his neck. Over the next few days, Lily began to blossom. She woke up earlier. She hummed at breakfast. She asked questions during bedtime stories. Words came easier, now not all at once, but enough to signal something beautiful. Healing. Dr. Evans couldn't stop smiling during their sessions. She's reconnecting, she said. Her mind is no longer trapped in the memory. She's moving forward. And still, every day, she asked about Justice. So Officer Bailey arranged weekly visits. On Tuesday afternoons, the cruiser would pull up, and Justice would jump out, tail wagging. Lily would squeal, running to meet him. They'd sit under the tree in the backyard, side by side, as if nothing bad had ever happened. But not everyone was ready to move on. In courtrooms across the state, children were still suffering, still being called to speak about the unspeakable. That's when a proposal landed on the governor's desk to expand the Courtroom K-9 Comfort Program statewide. The pilot had shown remarkable results, and justice had become the symbol of something larger than law hope. A month after the verdict, Marlene received an invitation to a public event at the Capitol, a ceremony honoring the contributions of service animals. Justice was to be recognized. They wanted Lily to attend too. Marlene hesitated at first. We don't have to do anything you don't want, she told Lily. You've already done more than enough. Lily sat quietly for a moment. Will Justice be there? Yes, and I want to go. The day of the ceremony was warm and bright. Crowds lined the Capitol steps, children waving little flags, police officers in full dress uniform. When Lily stepped out of the car in her yellow sundress, holding Justice's leash, the crowd fell silent and erupted in applause. Cameras clicked. Reporters stood back respectfully. One officer knelt and handed Lily a medal. For justice, he said with a wink, but also for his partner. Justice barked once, low and calm. Lily smiled. Inside the Capitol Rotunda, the governor gave a speech, highlighting the Courtroom Comfort Dog program and announcing its expansion to every county. But it wasn't his words that moved the audience. It was Lily's, with help from Dr. Evans. She stood at the podium and read a short sentence she had practiced for weeks. Sometimes kids are scared to talk, but if someone listens, even a dog, it helps. The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was soft, respectful. A recognition not of a perfect speech, but of pure truth. After the event, a woman from the National Trauma Advocacy Board approached Marlene. That little girl just did more for awareness than we could in 10 years, she said. She's going to change lives. Marlene looked at Lily, now sitting on the Capitol steps, her head resting against Justice's side. She already has, she replied. The medal Justice received at the Capitol now hung beside Lily's bravery certificate. Their accomplishments framed together, two symbols of courage and healing. But time, even for heroes, has its rhythm. Justice was slowing down. He'd given nearly a decade of service, comforting child victims, waiting patiently in cold courtrooms, laying still beside children with shaking hands and trembling hearts. His body was beginning to show signs of fatigue. Officer Bailey had known it was coming. The department decided it was time to officially retire Justice from courtroom duty. Lily didn't take the news the way Marlene had feared. Is he sad? She asked. No, Marlene said gently. He's just ready to rest. He's helped a lot of people now. It's his turn to be taken care of. Lily nodded. Then he should come live with us. Marlene paused. She had considered it, of course. But it was still technically up to the police department, as it turned out. They didn't need much convincing. Justice's handler, Officer Bailey, made the announcement 2 weeks later at a small ceremony held in the department's front lot. Local officials, officers, therapists, and foster parents all came to honor Justice's service. There were speeches, cupcakes, and even a bone-shaped cake just for him. When the moment came, Bailey called Lily up to the front. He knelt down beside her and handed her Justice's leash. "He's officially yours now," he said with a smile. Retired and ready for a couch. The crowd chuckled. Lily didn't say anything at first. She just dropped to her knees and hugged Justice tightly. "I love you," she whispered into his fur. Justice licked her cheek, his eyes closing peacefully. From that day on, he didn't wear a badge, just a blue collar with his name embroidered on it in yellow thread. He was no longer a courtroom comfort dog. He was just Lily's dog. And he seemed perfectly content with that dot, as Justice settled into his new role as full-time companion. Lily was undergoing another transformation. Her social worker sat down with Marlin one afternoon and said, "You've given her more than just a home. You've given her healing, stability, love." And then, with a smile, she added, "Are you ready to make this official?" Marlene's breath caught. She had waited, never wanting to push, always letting Lily lead the pace. But when she asked Lily how she would feel about being adopted, the little girl didn't hesitate. "Will Justice stay too? He's part of the package," Marlene promised. The adoption hearing was set for the following month. Lily picked out her favorite yellow dress, the same one she'd worn at the Capitol, and clutched her teddy bear the whole drive there. In the courtroom, surrounded by the people who had supported her journey, she stood proudly beside Marlene and Justice. The judge, thankfully, not the same one from her earlier trauma, smiled warmly as she finalized the papers. "Do you want to change her name?" the clerk asked. Marlene looked down at Lily. Lily shook her head. "I want to keep it. That's who I was. I just have a new home now." Tears welled in Marlene's eyes. "Then, Lily, it is." After the gavel came down, everyone clapped. Not for legal closure, but for love, survival, and second chances. Outside, a photographer from a local paper snapped a photo of Lily, Marlene, and Justice walking hand in hand and paw down the courthouse steps. It ran the next morning under the headline, "A New Chapter Begins Together." Later that night, as rain tapped gently on the windows, Lily curled up on the couch beside Justice. She pressed her head against his. "We're both retired now," she said sleepily, "from being scared." Justice let out a deep, peaceful sigh. And for the first time in a long time, the world outside didn't seem quite so big. By the time spring arrived, Lily had transformed. She was now 5 years old and full of light. She woke early, made her own bed, and raced downstairs to greet Justice every morning. Her once quiet voice now bounced through the house in songs, questions, and endless stories. Her favorite topic was still Justice, how he used to wear a badge and saved her in court. To the world, it was a story. But to Lily, it was truth. Justice, retired but still watchful, followed her everywhere. He napped near her shoes during breakfast. He lay by the front door during playtime. At night, he slept with his chin draped over the edge of her bed, tail thumping softly when she stirred. He didn't need a courtroom anymore. He had Lily, and that was enough. But life kept growing. Marlene enrolled Lily in kindergarten at a local school that embraced trauma-informed care. On her first day, Lily brought Justice along for drop-off. The principal, familiar with the story, gave them a warm welcome. "She's already touched so many," she said. "We're honored to have her." Lily thrived in class. She raised her hand, played with classmates, and asked to read out loud. But she also noticed the quiet ones, the ones who sat in corners or covered their ears during fire drills. One afternoon, she came home and said, "Some kids are still scared like I was. They don't have a Justice." Marlene paused. "That's true. But maybe they have someone like you now. That sparked an idea. With permission from the school and a local therapy dog group, Marlene arranged for Justice to visit once a week. The goal was simple. Let the children sit with him, pet him, read to him. No expectations. Just presence. Lily called it Justice Time. And it worked. Even children who rarely spoke began whispering stories into his ear. One nonverbal boy lay beside Justice during nap time and smiled for the first time in months. Teachers watched with awe. They couldn't explain the magic. They didn't try to. Justice didn't judge. He didn't demand. He simply stayed. And in that staying, something quiet and profound unfolded. Healing. The local news did a follow-up piece titled, From Courtroom to Classroom, the Dog Who Keeps Healing. This time, Lily was interviewed with her consent. And under her new legal guardian's supervision, she sat beside Justice, legs swinging under her chair, and said proudly, "He helped me. Now we help other kids." It wasn't about being famous. It was about being understood. That weekend, Marlene received dozens of emails from parents, teachers, and even retired officers who had been moved by the story. A former judge wrote, "I presided over 30 years of testimony. I've never seen anything as powerful as what that child and dog accomplished together." Justice continued his weekly visits, always wagging his tail when they arrived at the school. And Lily, though just a child, became something of a mentor. She didn't lead discussions or give speeches. She simply was present, kind, brave. And for some children, that was enough to start believing that they, too, could be okay. At night, Lily would sometimes pull out the bravery certificate from her wall. She'd sit with it quietly, running, her fingers over the raised gold seal. Marlene once asked if she wanted a new one, something more colorful. "No," Lily said. "This one reminds me that I did something really hard. And I didn't do it alone." Marlene smiled. "No, you didn't." She looked at Justice, sleeping peacefully by the fireplace, his once black muzzle now peppered with gray. He had served the courts. He had carried the broken dot now. In retirement, he was helping children rewrite their own stories. And Lily? She was leading the way, one soft step at a time. Years passed. Lily grew. From a quiet 5-year-old to a curious 8-year-old. She blossomed into a confident child with freckles on her cheeks and a sparkle in her eyes. She loved reading, baking muffins with Marlene, and painting sunsets. Her favorite color had changed from yellow to deep sky blue, because it looks like hope. She once told her art teacher. Justice, now older and slower, still followed her around the house. His black fur had faded to charcoal, and he struggled with stares. But his eyes, those steady, knowing eyes, were unchanged. They still tracked Lily's every move with the same protective calm he had shown her the day they met. That winter, during a school break, Lily asked Marlene if they could visit the police department. "Why?" Marlene asked gently. "I want to say thank you and goodbye." Marlene nodded. She understood. The police chief arranged a small gathering. Officers from the original Courtroom case came, including Officer Bailey. Most hadn't seen Lily in years, but none of them had forgotten her. They stood straighter when she walked in. Not out of duty, but respect. Justice padded beside her slowly. No badge, no uniform, just the soft click of his nails on the floor, and the gentle sway of his tail. The room was quiet as Lily stepped forward. "Hi," she said clearly, glancing at each of them. "You all helped me, but I wanted to come back." "Because he did the most." She looked down at Justice. "He didn't say anything. He just stayed, and that helped me be brave, so I could speak." No one in the room moved. Officer Bailey looked at the ground, blinking rapidly. "Sometimes people ask me why I'm not scared anymore," Lily continued. But I still get scared. I just know it's okay now. Because I'm safe. Because of you all and him." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small drawing done in her careful hand, crayons slightly smudged. It showed her holding Justice's leash in front of a building that looked like a courthouse. Above it, in blue marker, was one word, "Believe." She handed it to Bailey. "This is for the station, in case another kid comes who feels small like I did." Bailey knelt to accept it. "You're not small anymore, Lily," he said gently. "You're strong, and we're honored you came back." Justice lay down at Lily's feet, breathing steadily. His head rested near her shoes. Lily knelt beside him and whispered into his ear, just like she had the first day they met. "You saved me." Tears weren't hidden anymore. Even the chief turned away, wiping his face discreetly. Before leaving, Lily stopped by a bench outside the station. The sun peeked through gray clouds, spilling warm light across the concrete. She sat beside Justice, her hand resting on his back. "Are you tired, boy?" she asked. His tail wagged slowly, and he nuzzled her fingers. "He's been more than a dog," Marlene said softly. "He's been a bridge between then and now." Lily nodded. "He still is." Later that week, Justice passed peacefully in his sleep, curled at the foot of Lily's bed. There was no fear, only love, only peace. Marlene found Lily the next morning, sitting quietly beside him, one hand resting on his still shoulder. She didn't cry, not then. She just whispered, "Thank you," again and again. The department held a small memorial, not because they had to, but because they couldn't imagine not doing so. Officers spoke. Children wrote letters. A plaque was installed at the courthouse entrance, "In memory of Justice, comfort dog, hero, friend." He helped the smallest voices be heard. Lily placed her teddy bear beside it, now patched and well-worn. She smiled through tears. "I'll keep helping them," she whispered, and she did. Lily grew into a counselor, specializing in child trauma therapy. Her first office? It had a big blue rug, a bookshelf of storybooks, and a photo of Justice on the wall. And whenever a scared little voice would ask, "Can I really talk about it?" she'd smile softly and answer, "Yes, I did. And you can too."